Imagine having so much predictability in your sales that you have leads coming in on autopilot over and over and over again. Well, this is an amazing thing to have. It's not easy to get to, or is it? Today, my guest is going to talk about how they went from just wishing 2 deals came in per year to where they got to 100 appointments set per month. Absolutely amazing. You're going to love this one. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. On this episode, we have the one and only Mr. Eric Samson. Now, Eric and I got a chance to connect. Eric is an operations guy. You know, he was not a sales guy per se, and he built a company where he had great operations, great services. But the problem was it didn't have customers coming in. He only got his business based on word of mouth and referrals, and they weren't getting that many. To be honest, they were just forecasting out and projecting what deals might come in over the year. But he got frustrated to the point where he was hiring people and they weren't doing a good job. And he finally came to the point where he's like, you know what, we need to fix this. And he figured out a way to fix it so that now, not just focusing on operations, but they can focus on profit, on sales, getting revenue in the pipe. Now they have over 100 appointments per month, not the leads, but the appointments per month. So imagine how many more leads he's getting. He's going to reveal to us 3 things that they did to change their mindset in their organization and to change operations that allowed them to make this thing happen, and things that we could adopt and apply, especially as sales leaders. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, please subscribe. And let us know that you can connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know how you found the podcast. If you've been listening for a minute, but we haven't connected yet, send me a connection request on LinkedIn. I'd greatly appreciate that. As we dive in, I want you to think about how you can improve on your sales game and be honest with yourself. Look at some of the areas where you could be better. And especially if you're a sales leader, look at some of the things that you could take from this episode to help you to make your organization perform at an optimal level. Let's go ahead and dive in and get a chance to learn and see what Eric did exactly. Check it out. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I think for me, Eric, I think the goal of any organization is to get to the point where you have so many people reaching out to you to do business with you that you don't have any time. Like you don't have any time to go do any other networking event. It's just, or any type of outreach. It's just meeting with the clients. And I think that's the love that any salesperson would absolutely crave for in this crazy sales world that we're in. This is why I'm so excited for our conversation today, our dialogue, how you guys went from this referral basis to getting, getting a predictable scale when it comes to people coming into the organization. I want to tackle that. I bragged about you a little bit and in the teaser there, and I explained about a little bit more about you, but can you tell us why this is so, why this was so pretty significant based on your background to get to this point?
Yeah. So I started Group 8A born out of frustration with other agencies. I had my own e-commerce business. We hired agencies, and it always felt like they were more focused on making money for themselves and secondarily making money for us. I get that's kind of the way businesses work, but it really shouldn't be the way an agency works. And so I meant to, architect a different version of it where we really did put the client first, not because we're generous, wonderful people. Hopefully we are. I think a lot of us are, but because that's the best business model for an agency to have. And so in architecting that, what I did was I did essentially no to little upfront fees, no monthly fees unless we started making performance for you. And what I expected to get in return for that was basically everyone coming to us every single day. If you build it, they will come. It's not true. They don't. They will not come. You still have to do sales.
Dang it.
I thought I might get away with a no sales department environment, and it's not true.
Well, I'm glad you clarified some things up there for me on that. So I guys, stop building. We need a market. I'm just kidding. No, but you're 100% right there. I feel like sometimes we would if you create the perfect environment, you mean that you think it'll come, but there's more work that we have to do in order to make that happen. And especially in this episode, this is something that many organizations, sales organizations, might get distracted doing, might get distracted building the wonderful process that you're going to go about helping your clients to go through when you need a really predictable way of attracting and converting those clients. You need all of it, but you definitely need this part. So I'm very curious about how you guys went about doing this, and this is what I'm going to tackle in this episode today: how you guys went to this predictable avenue. But talk to me when it comes. The first problem that you guys had was you said you guys, as an organization, set some BHAGs, and some people may not know what that is. Can you talk to us about what BHAGs are and why did you guys start there?
Yeah. So when we realized we had this sales issue, we started looking into how to fix this. And I'm a big fan of the book Built to Last. It was one of the
Mhm.
first business books I read, and it had this part where it talked about big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAGs, and you should set some. And at the time, it was so inconsistent for us to get sales. We were a lot smaller. If we got 2 sales a year, 4 sales a year, it would be a good year. And so we set at the time a big, hairy, audacious goal of getting 2 sales a month. And we were literally going from lock, right? A client would call us and say, "You guys are great. Do you mind if I introduce you to someone?" And we would say yes. And then like we had never been on a date, like a 15-year-old boy, like trying to figure out how to get ready for it. It's like, um, we were lost in the sales world. We were operators, and so every time something like that came up, it was just so unclear. We made I think every mistake in the book, right? I'd like to write a book. That's the only thing maybe I'm an expert in sales is every mistake there is. We made it. We made it trying to figure this stuff out. But 2 sales a month was the big, hairy, audacious goal that we set. Felt impossible, and obviously we've surpassed it since then.
That's amazing. And and one of the things I want to highlight there is that you had a starting point. And sometimes many of us we don't need to compare to others. Like when you say 2 sales, some of us on the call maybe listening and saying, "Wow, 2 sales, they make that in a week." Like fantastic, great for you. But at that point, the volume where you guys were getting, it could seem like it was totally impossible, um, to get to that level. What was the mental roadblock that you had to overcome though for that?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of, what we were doing beforehand is we were projecting sales. We were just assuming that, like, as we grew, as we got better as an agency, as we had more revenue, like, the sales would just get bigger, more referral leads, more something, but we didn't really know what that something was. Once we got to a point where we weren't getting it, we started thinking about it more structured, which is, can we solve this with time or money? If we put time into a solution, are we good enough? Are we experts enough in sales to figure this out? We decided no for us. So then we put money into it. We hired consultants, we hired salespeople, and we didn't even know what part of the funnel to start with. So a lot of the times we were hiring closers or consultants that were consulting us on how to close, and then we weren't getting any calls. Right,
Yeah.
there were no sales calls to get on, so we were wasting money without even knowing it. It sounds obvious now, right? But at the time, we didn't know where to start. Somebody said they were successful at sales. They sounded great. They closed us, right? And we were happy to have them. And so eventually we started realizing that we needed to generate leads. We needed to get people in the door, and that was, phase one. And that's really hard. That's a really hard phase. Now we're getting about 100 sales calls a month, and really happy with that metric. It took us many, many years to build toward that. But the structure is solve it with time or money, right? Figure out what you do and don't know, and try and really break down the process of what comes first, second, and third. If you do the third thing first, right, you're really going to suffer because you're missing the first.
Mm. So that was your second step. You guys went into that time and money situation and evaluated there. Because one of the questions I had in our prep call, like I would really just want to know your go to market strategy. But again, it's the go to market strategy was just to uh, was just to project, and to wish and to hope. Um, what did like you got time and money to you got some consultants to help you. Did you find one that was helpful, or did you just figure out the process to start getting these 100 leads on your own?
Yeah. So every consultant we had was a smart, successful person who had done something similar to what we were trying to accomplish at some
Yeah,
part of the process. And so a lot of times what we found is they give us good advice for what we needed to hear 2 years later, but not
got it.
necessarily at the time. So we might have left the relationship with a sour feeling like this guy doesn't know anything. This guy can't solve our problems. And then 2 years later, we realized like, oh, he was saying things about now and we just weren't there and we didn't understand what he was talking about because we had these initial hurdles that he wasn't an expert in. And we didn't even know the difference between hiring one expert versus another.
But talk to me about you guys got, and that very well is some great stuff there, and I would take my team to make sure they get that for when I do consulting projects. But what is it that you guys did though? You tease me up now. You are 100 appointments. I mean, you make sure not leads, 100 appointments per
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
So you're probably getting 3 times that in leads or more. But how did you do that? You don't have to give me all the secret here. I
Sure.
don't need the 11 herbs and spices, but
So solved it with money, hired an expert who knew how to get opens. We knew how to amplify. Once we saw a system working, once we got to about 20 or 30 opens, sorry, leads, actual calls a month with one guy who really knew what he was doing, we were able to bring the cost per lead down and amplify the amount of cost. So, at the time, if we were paying, I don't know, $500 a lead, we're now down to probably under $100 per. And when I say lead, I mean actual call, a call that happened with one of our salespeople. So that process we're pretty good at, but we hired somebody who knew how to do outreach, right? We do them through outreach. We hired someone who knew how to do the outreach, who knew how to set it up, and we were able to successfully scale and iterate off of that process to continue to grow it.
is the clients you're going for B2B clients?
E-commerce clients, so
E-commerce
people
clients.
on Shopify doing over $2 million in e-com sales and up to 500 million or so, and operating in paid search, paid social, affiliate marketing, things like that.
Did your individual you guys hired, was that more now like Google Ads that was driving people to you, or was there some kind of cold outreach campaign, email campaign,
Cold outreach.
LinkedIn? Yeah. So
Yeah,
email, phone, both of that
exactly.
process. That's amazing.
Sophisticated outreach process that included calls, email, LinkedIn, all that fun stuff, and just stacking it. You get that part a little bit wrong, right? If you're 99% right, you're getting a near 0% return. You're getting no leads. When you get it right, you start to see a real return. You start to see a cost per lead that makes sense. But we've done it wrong on so many iterations. It's shocking how many things you could get wrong there, and it's
Mhm.
shocking how nuanced they are and how much of a difference they make.
Very interesting on that. Like when your team started to, how long is your sales process, by the way? Like if I'm getting one of these appointments, we're looking like a one call close, 3
It's,
a month.
we do it by time, so average time to close is around 30 to 45 days.
Okay, not bad. That's awesome. And then I mean, when this started to work, like you mentioned you guys started to amplify it and started to cut costs, but I just want to go back from your standpoint. The person that was banging their head against the wall was frustrated by what the two sales, to the point where you were, when you started to see success. Like, what was that feeling like for you?
Yeah, we always called sales the final frontier. So we were in business for about 8 years or so before we broke into that 2+ sales going. So it was we called it the final frontier. We said, like we figured out how to operate. We figured out how to be better than other agencies. We figured out all the things we need to do, and we literally have no way of telling anyone in the world that we're here and we're good.
Yeah.
Right? We can't even tell them that we're here, let alone that we're good. We can't get the call to say, "Hey, we exist," right? And then once we get them on the call, we have no idea how to tell them that we're actually good at what we do, right? And then once we get them as clients, we outperform the other agencies. But like, what? Who cares, right? We can't get a call with them. And so we called it the final frontier. And to be honest, it was right. The growth hasn't stopped since we figured this out. Um, it's an odd way to build a business. If you look at most of the agencies, they're almost all started by salespeople who figured out operations, right? They had a flow of incoming sales, and then they needed to throw people time and money at operations. We did just the opposite, which, by the way, I would highly recommend no one do. Don't operations first, figure out sales first. Um, it's nuts. It's nuts to have an excellent operating business that you just can't grow because you can't tell anyone about it.
Yeah, you're the best kept secret.
Yeah.
I had a company I worked for, and that was one of the things that the CEO always said, we're the best kept secret. And I was like, stop saying that. It's annoying. Like, we don't want to be the best kept secret. Let's do the things to get our names out there. But it was phenomenal. Um, Amplifying and cost cutting. Sometimes you said, there's a lot of things that could be going right or need to, you can improve on to make go right. But how do you know what to cut and when to cut? You guys did this, your cost per lead came down. But if I'm a sales leader or I'm a business owner listening to this episode, when should I feel comfortable start cutting things, and also to start adjusting? Because the last thing I want to do is mess with something that's working. Hopefully, I'm making sense on this.
Perfect sense. So I didn't cut anything while I brought my cost per lead down. I increased my cost per leads for near no additional expenses. And the way I did that is by compartmentalizing the parts of the project. So in generating a lead, there's like, let's say 10 steps. And of those 10 steps, I'm hiring one person to be an expert to do those 10 steps. But if you break down those 10 steps, they only need to really be an expert in 3 of them. The other 7 could be done by anyone. They're commoditized. And so if I'm paying the premium for the expert who can only do those 3 and no one else could do those 3, then why am I paying him to also do the 7? If I hand those 7 off to someone else who's less expensive and I have him focus on those 3 that only he can do, then shouldn't I end up with double or triple the leads in a
Of course.
relatively short period of time? And that's exactly what I did. So part by part, right? I didn't do all 7 at once and find out that, one of those 7 was actually an expert needed. I did the easiest one first, and then the second, and then the third.
Can you give me an example of what that one of your things that you cut down like that or went through that motion with?
Yeah. Grabbing the leads, right? So like, let's say we want to pitch Nike and we want to pitch CMOs at whatever e-commerce brand we pick, and we pick Nike and we want to reach out to the CMO. If it's as clean as CMOs of the companies that we pick on this list, our lead flow, then anyone should be able to go into whatever system we're using and get the email address from the guy at Nike, right? And we were having our expert do that. And I'm like, this isn't expert work. This is something I could train someone to do in under a month versus have someone with 10 years of experience doing advanced outreach doing. And so we broke stuff up like that. The initial email, if it's templated, doesn't have to be sent out by an expert, could be sent out by, somebody who's more operational and just detail oriented. And
Interesting.
sorry, go on.
No, keep going, keep going.
So yeah, so we just kind of looked at it like that. With every job, we do this a lot at Group 8A. We break down jobs into essentially 2 categories. There are really 4 quadrants, but let's just think about it in 2 quadrants for a minute, or 2
Yep.
categories. It's either $10 an hour work or $100 an hour work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that literally, but just think about the difference. Everyone in their day is doing something really simple that anyone can do,
Yep.
and they're doing something really complex that only they could do with their 10 plus years experience. And so when you have them doing those simple things that anyone can do, you're wasting their time doing those things. So if you think about it from a billing perspective, I could bill $10 an hour for 50% of their time and $100 an hour for 50% of their time. So you really want to break that up and give $10 an hour work to $10 an hour employees so that they can become $100 an hour employees. And you want to give the $100 an hour work to the people who have already done the work that they are $100 an hour employees. So when you start breaking things down like that, you start getting a much better cost and much happier employees.
As a leader, is it because of, I like to look at it versus like, so to speak, like tradition versus doctrine. Like doctrine is like, this is eternal rules, eternal laws. We can't change that. But the traditions, like, well, in my last company, I did the lead grabbing, I did this, I did the updating the CRM, and I did the closing. Like, and how do you change that mentality though? Because I feel oftentimes that we go back to these traditional, this is traditional, and now we have 2 or 3 cooks in the kitchen doing the job. Was there any concern with that internally inside, your boardroom or if you guys were talking about that with your
100%.
executive team?
Yeah, the answer is patience and repetition, right? When I first bring up something that you're not gonna like, you're gonna say no, and that's okay, right? So when somebody's set in their ways and doing a really good job at it, and you say, "Hey, I think I should break your job into 2," and then you'll be able to do twice as much of the stuff you're good at. And I say, "What can I break off?" They go, "Well, really nothing. Everything's important to the success." I go, "Okay, no problem, but, like, maybe we should think about it again." Right? And the second time I bring it up, I go, "Hey, you know, um, I'm thinking about your job, and I think this one thing that you're doing, grabbing the leads off the internet, can you give that away?" Really, no, because there's sometimes where the leads are bad, right? That like, I could get bad leads. It's like, "Okay, no problem." Bring it up again, and it's like, "Well, like, if we did it and the leads were bad, what percentage of them are gonna be bad?" It's like, "Well, maybe 3%." It's like, "Well, okay, if 3% are bad and we just accept it, like, would the rest work?" It's like, "I guess the rest would work." It's like, "Okay, cool." It took me 3 times to repeat myself. I had to be patient 3-week meetings, but then we're getting it done, and we're moving forward, and what was crazy also is once you gain someone's trust a little bit in changing the system, they're excited to take the next step and the next step. So I had to do that for steps 1 and 2 of these 7, but the next 5 happened, and they were technically part of the higher end stuff, the more complicated stuff. But once they start earning trust in each other and understanding the interplay, it starts going pretty seamlessly.
Fascinating. Well, I mean, you guys are clearly doing pretty well right now and pretty successful with where you are. You mentioned 100 leads per 100 appointments per month. So, I mean, imagine you guys are closing probably 50% at least, right? 30,
We
40,
close
50.
we close 15 to 20%.
Okay, so 20% there. That's not too bad. Better than that's way more than the two. I'll tell you that
Yeah,
much.
way more than it's,
Um,
it's almost embarrassing, right? If the writers of, Built to Last came to me, they would have been like, "That's not a big, hairy, audacious goal. You should have set it at 200."
like, bro, that was 200. That's like 2 million for us at that point. Perception, right? No, this is great, man. Well, this is awesome. Congratulations on what you guys are doing. You went from referral base to predictability. I'm a sales leader. I'm sitting back and I'm listening to this episode, and I'm thinking, okay, I can set the big goals. Number two, hire the expert. Um, I just have a hard time finding those individuals. I feel like I could do it myself. Can you give what advice would you give to her or him as they're listening to this, thinking how they can optimize and to get to where you are?
Yeah, break it down into steps and do the first thing first, right? If you're really successful at things 4 through 8, like I was with a bunch of the steps after the lead, but I still couldn't generate the lead, it was all nothing, right? It all helped in the end, but the faster path there would have been to break it down into steps and focus on the first thing first. So if you could get over the next hump that you have and you prioritize that and you use time or money to solve that. If you are the expert, if you do think you could figure it out, that's great. If you're not, after 2 or 3 shots at trying to figure it out yourself, find the expert, right? Whoever else is doing it in your industry or the closest thing to it.
Yep, you're gonna save some money. Listen, this was awesome. Truly phenomenal. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and share some of this stuff to us, Eric. If folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to go about doing so?
LinkedIn or our website, group8a.com.
Awesome. Eric, thank you for coming on the show. We'll put that stuff in our show notes. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Donald.
That was Eric Samson. If you haven't connected with him as of yet, please go ahead and do so. Tell him you heard him here on the Sales Evangelist podcast, and I truly appreciate that. I know he will be happy. I mean, one of the things that I took away from this one was I love the concept of making sure that we go back and we look at some of those things that we don't need to do and get somebody else to do it. I mean, it may sound like crazy, but some of us, we have processes established in our organization and it's been like that forever. But it doesn't necessarily mean we have to keep doing it the same old way. We can try different things and do different, do our processes in unique ways to be able to improve. Now, I would love for you to be able to take all the things that Eric shared, applied it, and to improve your game, but it's not going to happen by osmosis. You have to apply it, and that comes back on you. What's one thing you're going to take and apply? Listen, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. If you need that help with accountability and to improve your game, you should check out our sales mastermind. You can find details at thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. The mastermind is designed in a way where salespeople come together. We get a chance to set a goal. We work with you to tackle some of your challenges and work through some of those objects and some of those things that made you lose a deal last quarter. We'll help you to improve on that. Maybe your outreach messages are not working great, or you're doing cold call and you just feel like your strategy is not working. We help you with that. Jump into the mastermind, become a member, and we work through some of those challenges and help you hit your quota every single quarter. I want you to thrive. I want you to be a part of it. thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. As always, I want you to raise your level of thinking. I want you to go out and do big things. See you in the next one.